Welcome to the Darkzone WCAK 1124 AM's presentation of the BillyBob Saga in its entirety. There's not been a saga like this since Mills Hole. Also, as an added track, Art Bell will read the Ronald Opus story, followed by Sal Rock reading the Oliver Grant story. The bizarre twist of events that turned out to be related, as they were cousins. Sit back and enjoy. The saga begins now.
East of the Rockies, you are on the air.
Well, hi, Sal. I don't exactly have a ghost story tonight, but I do have a story and adventure in my life that I'd like to tell you about concerning time travel.
Well, if you listen to this show and you know me, I am a big fan of time travel, one of my favorite subjects. So, who do we have the pleasure of talking to, and what is your location?
Well, my name is BillyBob, and I'm just right on the outskirts north of Carson City, Nevada. And I'd like to tell you what happened to me in my life. 2 years ago, I originally was in the year 2029. It would now be the year 2031 if I would have stayed there, but I did not, and now I am here.
And how did you get from 2029 to here?
Well, that's where my story begins now, and I'll go ahead and tell you what happened.
Okay, go ahead, lay it on us.
Well, I used to be a plumber, and I used to occasionally stop by a bar on a Friday night on my way home after work, and that's exactly what I was doing that Friday night. So I pulled into my local watering hole that I like, and went in to have 1 to 2 beers, just relax and start my weekend. Well, I sat down, I got about halfway through my first beer, and I started talking to the gentleman next to me. And we just got to talking a little bit, and he was telling me that he had been trapped there. And I said, trapped? Well, like, what do you mean trapped? And he said, well, I was from a different time, and I came to this time, and I accidentally got trapped here. And I thought, well, maybe he's about 10 beers ahead of me. But as it turned out, he was not. So, he introduced himself to me as Mike Markham. And so we got to talking a little bit more and having a couple more beers and get to know each other. And he told me that he had built himself a time machine. And I said, well, you're absolutely nuts, I think, or maybe you're just too many beers in. I'm not quite sure.
Wait, BillyBob, hold on. You're telling me he introduced himself to you with the name Mike Markham?
Yes, sir. Yes, he did.
Does the name Madman Markham mean anything to you?
Well, not at that moment, it did not, no. I didn't know who Madman Markham was, or Mike Markham, or anybody else. Just the guy I met in the bar that night that claims he built a time machine.
Okay, so this was taking place in the year 2029, am I correct? Is that what you said?
Why, yes. It was 2029 when I first met the old Mike in that bar having the beer.
Okay, so, tell us how you got here then.
Well, Mike asked me, he said, you know, who is your favorite person ever in the world, and is that person still alive?
Mm-hmm.
And I told him, no, she is no longer alive. My favorite person in the world was my grandmother, and she's been passed on now for a while. And he looked at me dead in the eye and said, what if you could go back and see her one more time? Would you want to do it? And I said, well, of course I would want to do it. Who would pass up bad opportunities if he had a chance to go do it? So we finished off our last beer and decided it was time to go. And he said, how about if I take you and I show you how you can see her again? And I was just a little dumbfounded, but hell, I'm up for a good one. So I said, well, let's go, Mike. Let's go see whatever it is that you're talking about. So we went outside the bar and hunted down a Django, which well, I guess in today's charm, you guys know that as an Uber, but it's called the Django in 2029. In any event, we got a ride, and we took a ride down to some old abandoned factory houses and went inside of one. He took me inside of one of those. And, well, we started looking around, and, well, at least I did, and he knew where he was going. Took me down to the bottom part of that abandoned factory, and there he had it. It was some big contraption-looking thing, kind of like a big 55-gallon drum, only huge, with a bunch of electrical hooked up to it. Some sort of transformers crap. I don't know. I'm not an electrician. Hell, I'm just a damn plumber, So we got down to this contraption and walked up to it. We stopped, and he was just staring at it. And I just didn't know what to think at that point, but he looked me dead in the eye. And he said, "This is how I can do it. I can send you back to see your grandma one more time. But if you do this, there's rules." That's how I got stuck here.
Okay, so BillyBob, now, you mentioned it twice that he was stuck there, and I'm anxious now to hear what these rules are, because I want to know how Madman got stuck in the year 2029.
Well, here's what he's told me. He told me that once you get to your destination, you cannot interfere with anything. You cannot change even the smallest of timelines or anything. Unfortunately, I can let the emotions get the best of me. Well, now I'm stuck here, just like he's stuck there in 2029. Well, it's now 2031.
Okay, so what was the procedure that Madman Markham used to send you back to this time? What were the set of events that happened at that moment?
Okay, well, I'm going to be totally honest with you. I don't know what he did. He opened the door. He said, "Go in and don't screw up. And just close your eyes, and when you open them, you're going to be, well, in a different time. And you better know where you're at." So, I went in. He closed the door. I closed my eyes. Remember, a loud bang sounded like a shotgun times 20 times. Then I woke up in this time here. And I exited the door, and I was in this time.
Well, BillyBob, I have to tell you, this is one of the most fascinating stories I have ever heard. So I'm anxious to hear the end of this. Tell me what happened.
So when I exited the factory building that we went into, I was in the same spot. It looked a little bit different. There was some graffiti missing that I noticed on the way in. It was not there. But I knew where I was at. I was in the same city. So, I went ahead and tried to make my way to a place to sleep, because it was late that night. And then I remembered the date. And the date was just, the next day was the day that my grandmother had died. And so I wanted to get to that location where she was murdered.
Wow, BillyBob, you're telling me your grandmother was murdered?
Yes, it was just a freak thing, really. She was in the wrong place, the wrong time. And she was the salt of the earth. Everybody loved my grandmother, including me. Well, she used to frequent all the local little stores, and she was in a market one day, and a young punk decided to hold up the store at gunpoint. And as the story goes, he accidentally dropped the pistol that he was holding store up with, because he was just a young kid, And the gun went off, and the bullet struck my grandmother directly in the heart and killed her on the spot.
Oh, that is so tragic, BillyBob. So how did you get stuck here in this time from that event?
Well, I went down to the market, and I just wanted to see my grandmother one more time. I wasn't trying to interfere with anything, and I wanted to go back to my timeline in 2029. But I put on a hat and a coat, stuff, and I went into the market, and I saw my grandmother enter the market before me. And I kind of hid away in the aisle a little bit, and here comes this punk kid in the front door, puts on a bandana on his face, and pulls out a gun and says, "I want all your money." And so the The deli man was cooperating. The store was cooperating. My grandma was just standing there in disbelief, it looked like. And the kid started getting nervous, and somebody came in the front door, the bell rang, and he got startled, dropped the gun, and I was close enough, and when I saw him get startled, I started to jump in between, because I couldn't just watch my grandmother get shot. So I jumped in between, the gun hit the ground and went off, and the bullet hit me in the pinky and took off my pinky fingertip, and it deflected the bullet. But the bullet did not strike my grandmother straight in the heart and kill her. But it did strike her right below the ear and instantly kill her anyway. But that little bit of timeline change was enough to keep me stuck here in this time.
Okay, so Billy Bob, what happened? I mean, your fingertips gone. I'm assuming you're bleeding. The chaos is ensuing. What happened at that point?
Well, I just grabbed a handkerchief and I wrapped up my finger to keep shot hold of blood in. And I made my way out of there. I didn't want to be seen or ask questions or who was I or show ID, and I made my way out of there quickly. The pug kid ran out the door right in front of me. I ran out and I immediately went back to the factory area where the machine was. Because I thought, well, hell, that's the only way I'm getting out of here. And no, when I entered that factory, it was empty, but it was completely empty. And that time machine was gone. So I just infiltrated myself into this society and been stuck here ever since.
Well, Billy Bob, we're coming up on the bottom of the hour right now, and we need to take one break from our sponsor. Can you hold for a couple of minutes? I have a couple more questions to ask you here.
I sure as will. I'll be right here.
Billy Bob, are you still there?
Why, yes, Sal. I'm still here.
Okay, Billy Bob, here's one of the things that I've been wondering. You said you integrated back into society here in our time, the present time that we're in. And how did you do that? Because financially, it takes money to live. And how did you do that?
Well, that Friday night when I met up with the Mike there at the bar, I had just come from the bank. We had just gotten paid at the plumber job, so I had about almost $3,000 in cash in my wallet, and I still had that. Once I started running on the loose here, and I used my knowledge of some sporting events that had already happened to place some decent wagers, and that has allowed me to live quite comfortably and get settled back in.
Well, that is fascinating. I'm not going to ask you what those wagers were.
Well,
but
yeah, I that's not the only crazy thing that's happens to me. Since I've been back here, I've also got abducted.
Oh, abducted?
Why, yes.
Okay, Billy Bob, this is probably going to get into a long story here, and what I want you to do is stay on the line after we go off the air here in just a second and give all of your contact information to my board op. I would like to possibly set up a full show interview with you. What do you think?
Well, all right. So I'll hang on the line here and then we'll do that.
On tonight's episode, we have the long-awaited interview of Billy Bob, the man that had a chance meeting in a bar with Madman Markham and was sent back in time and now is trapped. And that was just an absolutely fascinating story on an earlier episode of the show. He claims to have been abducted in that episode, and now we are going to find out the truth. I can't wait to hear what he tells us. Welcome back. We are about to engage in an interview with Billy Bob. I have received thousands of emails since an earlier episode he claimed to be abducted, along with meeting Madman Markham and time traveling back to this time and getting stuck here. I have no idea the details about his abduction, but we are about to find out whether he was abducted by the cartel, by a woman, or by aliens. BillyBob, are you there?
Why, yes, Sal. I'm here, and I'm on a landline, just as you requested.
Now, BillyBob, the last time I talked to you was when you were on the air telling us the story about meeting up with Madman Markham and the time travel event and how you got stuck here. You had mentioned at that point that you had got abducted. And I want you to tell us that full story. That's why we've dedicated this part of the hour to you. We want to hear the full story about your abduction, and let's just pick the story up from where we left off last time and how you got in the position to get abducted.
Well, it's okay, Sal. So I had a medical emergency going on at that point, as you can imagine, and I had to just do what I had to do. I went into a veterinarian's hospital that I found just walking down the streets, and I had to go in and ask the guy if I could just pay his cash for him to clean me up, and he cleans it up, and it's not the prettiest thing that you ever seen, but it was enough to get me going on my way, and I just went on from there.
Wow, a veterinarian. Well, I guess you had to do what you had to do, and that was a way to not show ID and just pay cash and get going. So carry on. What happened from there?
Well, I wanted to get away from the situation that I was in, Sal, and I bought a cabin up in the mountains outside of Carson City. That's really where my stories begin.
Okay, BillyBob. Well, I'm buckled in, so let's hear it.
Well, once I got settled into this cabins that I'm in now, I got all into nature and things. Got myself a dog, and I got myself really fully engulfed into nature, and we got into coon hunting, the dog and me. Now, anyone that knows and has been in the coon hunting knows best times to go out is in the night times. So I decided that Leroy was my coon dog. So I decided that Leroy and I would just go ahead and take a 2-night trip. We'd do some hiking up into the hills, get way up back in there, and just have some fun doing some coon hunts. Now comes Saturday's mid-morning, we packed up some stuff. I got Leroy ready, got him some grub, packed up a roll, packed up some food, got my 30-06 and my trusty old bowie knife, and, well, we were on our way.
Now, BillyBob, did you leave on foot from your cabin? So has all of this happened semi-local to what your cabin is, this whole event?
Why, yes, Sal. It was about a 4-hour hike from my cabin all the way up to, we stopped at Jeremiah's Summit. Now, Jeremiah's Summit, it was a good place to stop, but Jeremiah's Summit was named after Jeremiah that froze to death there by falling down and breaking his leg. And the terrain, it gets extremely rough after that if you go any higher, so that was a good spot for us to go ahead and set up camp and start looking for some coons that night.
Now, BillyBob, how far away from any kind of civilization were you? Was there any kind of people around anywhere there? And once you hit this, what did you call it, Jeremiah Summit?
Yes, Jeremiah Summit.
Yeah, was that where the encounter took place?
It was. And so I set up camp there at Jeremiah Summit, found this nice, comfortable little spot. Once we were all set up, I decided, well, I better go ahead and take a nap because coon hunting, we're going to be up all night. So as I laid down, I took me a nap, and I didn't wake up again. When I did wake up, it was dark, and there was nothing but a sliver moon, so the light wasn't really that good out there. Now, as I slipped my boots on and got up to my feet, and just as I got to my feet, this damn bright light came right up over the top of the mountain peak. And it just got brighter and brighter, and next thing I knew, it was like the sun came down, and it was right on top of me at that point. I say it's on top of me, but it was really at the top of the tree line. It was about probably 300 yards down from where I was at. Now, I could see this craft up in the air above the tree line, but I couldn't make out what it was because of the brightness of the light around it. And then this beam came straight down, right out to the craft, like a lightning bolt that lasted probably maybe about 5 seconds. Now, Sal, a creature then stepped out of that beam. The beam disappeared, and there's we were. And Leroy, he went crazy. Leroy just started barking and growling and took off as fast as he could running towards that creature. Then, Sal, something horrible's happened. As soon as Leroy got up close to that creature let out a screech, and I don't even knows how to describe how that sound was. It was like a baby goat when it sounds like a little girl screeching. Then Leroy stopped, just almost dead to tracks. And then And then he started bleeding from his ears, and he dropped over dead. That creature killed my dog.
Whoa, Billy, you're telling me this creature killed your dog when you were out?
Yes, sir. You sure did, Sal.
Oh my God, that is horrible, Billy. So, what happened after that?
Well, with the creature being all distracted by the dog and all that, that gives me an opportunity to jump behind trees that were close to me right there and kind of hides away, and the creature did not see me at that point. So I worked my way down through the brushes, and along the tree line down there, the creature was just looking around. I waited till it got turned around. I wanted to get down there to see what was going on with my dog. Now, as I got down there, and I was right up on the backsides of this creature, and I could see old Leroy was gone. And I just stopped thinking, I think, at that point. I worked my way around and jumped on the back of this creature. Threw him in a headlock the best that I could, and it was all like Donkey Kong at that point. Now, it's the only things that was going through my mind was that only one of us was going to be leaving this ridge alive. Either this creature or me. Then this thing started kicking me right in the back. I was on its back, and it has these, like, legs that kind of hinge backwards, kind of like the opposite of human, and was kicking me right in the back, and it finally kicked the wind out of me and then threw me to the ground off its neck, and the next thing I knew, it was jumping on top of me, pinning me to the ground.
Wow, so Billy Bob, you were up close and personal with this creature. I mean, you had physical contact, and you were right up close to this thing. What was the skin like? What did the skin feel like? What did the eyes look like? Was there a smell to it?
Well, Sal, I can tell you this. It's all happened so fast. We were wrestling around on the ground. I was on its back. It was kicking me, threw me to the ground, and then it jumped on me. And when it jumped on me, I did grab its arm, and the skin felt like a hard rubber type material. I don't know how else to describe it. But it was the eyes. The eyes were it was like it was piercing through the insides of my souls. And eyes just laid there at that point, and I couldn't struggle anymore. Now, what's happened next was that big beam of light that brought it down to the surface, that creature to the surface, came back and grabbed us both and sucked us both up into the craft, and then I was in the craft at that point. Now, I was trying to struggle a little bit, but I couldn't, and then they put this laser-type light into my eyes. It didn't seem to really hurt my eyes, but it made me, like, numb, and I was completely out of control at that point. I could not control anything in my body. I was, like, paralyzed at that point.
So, Billy Bob, but now you're on the ship, and you're looking around. What do you see? How many creatures is there? Was there just the one singular creature? Was there multiples? Did they look the same? Did they look like different from each other? Well, man, I have a million questions. What'd you see?
Well, Sal, I remember there was at least 3, and they all looked identical to each other. There may have been more. I just only remember seeing 3. 2 of them were working on me. They threw me up on a table and strapped me down. They strapped my forehead down. They strapped my arms down. I couldn't move anyway. I was numb. They started measuring all parts of my body, my eyes, my head, my arms. They were poking and prodding and checking all kinds of stuff on me. They were giving me a better exam than I'd ever had in my life. Then, the second ones, these came over with some sort of contraption that looked like about the size of a big cucumber, and they flipped me over on my stomach. And they proceeded to just take that big cucumber-looking thing and shove it right in my...
Billy Bob? Billy Bob? Oh, it seems that we have lost Billy Bob. Let me take a quick break from a sponsor while I get reconnected to Billy Bob. We'll be back in just one moment.
Oh, bright ideas and an Oreo cookie. It's a bright idea to dunk it, or to crunch it, or unscrew it, or to lick it, or to trick it. But no matter what you do, it's true. It's fun to munch a creamy, crunchy chocolate. Oreo goes great with imagination. Puts the yum in your creation.
Oreo and Oreo double stuffed cookies.
Welcome back. We had a technical issue and a disconnect with Billy Bob just at a very unfortunate time, but we have now reconnected with him, and we're going to carry on with the story right where we left off. Billy Bob, are you there?
Yes, Sal, I'm here.
Okay, Billy Bob, when we got disconnected, you were just about to get probed with something, and let's pick up the story there.
Well, yeah, Sal. So what happens was that cucumber-looking thing turned out to be exactly that. It was a cucumber, and that creature started eating it. Meanwhile, they did stick a probe in my ear to try to measure something. I'm not sure what they were doing.
Now, Billy Bob, it sounds like you've been poked and prodded and stripped and every other thing they could have done to you. How long were you on this craft?
Well, Sal, it seems like at this point it felt like it was maybe 2 hours or something like that is what it felt like, but I wasn't really sure. And then, after they were done poking and prodding and measuring, they put me in some sort of chamber that filled with like a mist of some sort. Then that's the last things that I remember on that ship.
Well, then what happened at that point?
Well, the next things I remember after being put in that chamber and the mist filling it was I woke up and I was laying in the middle of a cornfield in Nebraska, naked, covered in slimes. And I kind of shook my head and went, "What the F?" and stood up, looked around, and I saw nothing but corn stalks all over, and I was standing there in my naked with the slime all over.
Wow, Billy Bob, this is quite the fantastic story. So, how did you get home from there?
Well, my first thoughts were, find his clothes or some way to cover up. So I started working my way through the cornfield, and I could hear some tractors and some noise over one direction, so I heads that way. Finally came up to a little bit of the edge of the cornfield, and there was a big farmhouse and things there. There was a little grass area I had to run across, but I did see some clothes and some blankets hanging, drying out on the laundry dryer. I ran up and grabbed one of those blankets. Well, the owners of that place didn't take kindly to somebody just grabbing their blankets, especially somebody that was naked and full of slime. So I wrapped that blanket around me, and I turned around, and there's a grandma standing there with a double-barrel shotgun, points straight at me, asking me who I was. Why was I on their land?
Wow, Billy Bob, you went from a bad situation to another really bad situation. So what did you tell the grandma to get out of this bind?
Well, I thought I had to do some quick thinking on my feet, right? So, I told her I was abducted by some cartel down in Mexico's when I was a tourist. They had tried to get money out of me, and I had no monies for them. So, they stripped me down, put me in an oil tank, and then brought me up here and dumped me down here in her cornfield. Now, Sal, I know this all sounds crazy, like I would make up that story about the cartels, but what was more crazy? Me's telling her that aliens picked me up, that creatures picked me up in some sort of spaceships or something, and that I was being drugged around and probed and prodded by some sort of creatures. That seems a lot crazier to me in my mind, or at least it did at the moment. They both sound ridiculous to me now when I think back on it. But she ended up inviting me in and making me a nice cup of warm peppermint tea, and found me some old overalls that she had laying around there. I think they're from her grandpappy or something. She turned out to be a super nice lady, and she's the one that ultimately helped me get back home, and I am very thankful to her to this day.
Well, Billy Bob, this has been some kind of an amazing story that you have told us here about this abduction. I thought your time travel story was amazing. This one is equally as amazing as that. I have jammed phone lines here, people calling in wanting to ask you questions. Now, I know we didn't talk about you taking questions from the audience, but do you want to stay on longer and answer some of these questions that these callers have? Because I'm sure there's a lot of great questions about this particular story that you have going on right now. How do you feel about that, Billy?
Wise yet, Sal. I's got no problem staying on as long as you just want me to.
Well, fantastic, Billy Bob. Let me see. Wild card line. You are on the air with Billy Bob.
Oh, hi. I was looking for Sal. Is Sal there?
Well, this is Sal. We have Billy Bob on the air, and we're taking questions for Billy Bob about his abduction story. Do you have a question for Billy Bob?
I just wanted to ask you about the episode 2 weeks ago, about the witches episode.
Well, right now we are interviewing Billy Bob about his abduction, and we are only taking questions for Billy Bob. So you'll have to call back during open lines later. Line 1, you are on the air with Billy Bob.
Hi, Sal. This is Jerry from Des Moines, Iowa. I have a question for Billy Bob.
Go ahead. Billy Bob is right here with us listening.
Hi, Billy Bob. How much time exactly passed between the time that you were sucked up into the craft and when you woke up in the cornfield
It was November 5th when I got abducted. I got sucked up into that craft. It was November 9th, the day I didn't know at the times, but it was November 9th when I awoke in that cornfield and the grandma found me.
What? Wait, BillyBob, you have no recollection of the 4 days that you were on that craft?
Wise? Yes, sir. That is correct, Sal.
Fascinating. So you have no idea what they did to you in those 4 days on that craft?
None's whatsoever.
Toll-free line. You are on the air with BillyBob.
Well, hi, Sal. This is Monroe from Bend, Oregon. Hey, BillyBob, I was just curious. Did you ever consider maybe trying that regression hypnosis to see what exactly happened to you while you were on that craft for those 4 days?
That is an excellent question, Monroe. BillyBob, I have had 4 or 5 regression hypnosis specialists on the show, and I have the numbers of all of them. I can contact one of them. I can set you up with that if you're interested to find out what exactly happened to you in those 4 days on that craft.
Let's me think about that one, Sal. I just don't know if I want to relive those memories right now or not. Right now, it's a bad memory, and it might get worse if I do that. I don't know.
Okay, BillyBob. Well, we will stay in contact, and if you really want to get that done, maybe we can even do it on the show. You can make that decision. You have plenty of time. We'll stay in contact. You let me know. Wild card line, you are on the air with BillyBob.
Well, hi, Sal. This is Mary from Georgia. And I have a question for BillyBob about his abduction. I was abducted when I was in my teens with a similar situation. And I was wondering with BillyBob, when they put that laser type light in your eyes, what was the feeling that you were having? Because I have a very, very strong memory of how I felt and the strangeness of that.
Okay, so I also have a strong memory of that moment. It was like when they put that laser right up in my eyes, I saw green tint for a little bit. And then it felt like my entire mind was opened to the inside of the ship. Like everybody was walking around within my mind, and they could hear every thought and feel every emotion that I had. Now, I just felt like I was completely intruded. Like I couldn't get them out of my mind if I wanted.
Yes, that's exactly how I felt. And it's been more than 2 decades that I have not been able to explain it to anybody. This is the first time that I have talked to anybody that could relate exactly what I was feeling. That's very obtrusive. And it just makes you feel very violated in every way. I still feel violated. And it was over 25 years ago when I was abducted.
Well, maybe I can have both you and BillyBob on the show with Dr. Schulman and have you both regressed from the time that the green light hits you and see if there's a matching correlation between the two. Wow, that's quite fascinating. Line 2, you are on the air with BillyBob.
Hey, Sal, this is George down in Beecham County, Alabama, home of the world's greatest grits. Now, I have a question for you, BillyBob. Do you think that your time travel incident and your abduction incident are related in any way? Like, do you think there's a connection between the two? And also, do you ever notice there's anything at all different between, your physical self and your mental self since either one of these events in your life?
Yes, I can tell you that I've had few physical things. As you know, if you heard me on the other episode explaining the time travels story and my grandmother, I had my pinky's fingertip shot off in that incident, and I've had 2 implants removed from the abduction. I had an implant removed from my neck, and I had an implant removed from my big toe on my right foot. So I've had that physical stuff, but it's been more of a mental thing. It's, I wake up many nights, just a terror feeling that somebody's calling me. It's calling me in the middle of the night. I can hear voices echoing. And I know I'm not going crazy or anything, but I just feel that all happened after the abductions. Now, as far as the two events being connected, well, I don't know about that. I'm not sure that I can't see any way how they were connected. I know that after the time travel, I was brought back and I got stuck in this time. And then I got abducted, and maybe if I didn't time travel, I wouldn't have got abducted. I don't know. Or I don't know if I was sent back somehow to get abducted. I have no idea. I just don't see how they're connected, or maybe they are. I don't know.
So, BillyBob, you had 2 implants removed from both your neck and your big toe. Do you have these implants? Do you still have those? Because I'd really be interested in getting that analyzed if you've got those.
No, I don't have those. I never had those. Once I found out that I had the implants and I suspected that there was something under my skin there, I was sent to a specialist. Some special doctor took those out and said, "Oh, you don't need those, and we're going to take care of that and dispose of those for you because they're toxic." And at that point, I never saw them. They just removed them and sewed me up, a couple of stitches. 2 months later, I tried to contact that doctor, and that doctor was gone. The whole building was closed up with a vacancy sign on it, and I never could figure out who that doctor even was after that. It was a fake name.
This is no surprise to me, BillyBob. Through hundreds and hundreds of documented implant removal stories, I have yet to be able to get my hands on a real implant to have it analyzed, and I know some of the best that can do it, and they will do it. But they always seem to disappear. Every time one is removed, there's a story, it's toxic, like they told you, or it's nothing, and we'll throw it away for you, and so on and so forth, and they just all seem to disappear. And the doctors that remove them all seem to disappear with that. All free line, you are on the air with BillyBob.
This is Johnny calling from Melbourne. When I was a kid, my brother was abducted. And the question for you, BillyBob, will they ever come back knocking at your window again? Have they been there more than one time? Our brother was abducted 4 times. Oh, not just once. And I wonder, will they be coming back for you again? Do you think?
Wells, I can tell you this. I's never see him ever since the abduction, and I hopes to never see him again till the days I die. That I can know.
And BillyBob, if it does ever happen to you again, please contact me right away because I have resources that can probably get you help that you're going to need. First time caller line, you are on the air with BillyBob. Well, hi, Sal. I can't believe that I've got through. This is amazing. I've tried for many months to get through, and I can't believe I'm on the air with you guys. Hi, BillyBob. A question for you. Back, I know this is about the abduction, and this is a great story. I really appreciate it, but I want to ask you a quick question about your time travel story. Madman Markham, do you have any idea what ever happened to him after that?
Wells, no, I don't. I don't really know what happened to him after I went in that doors. I went into the machine, and I came out this time, and I never saw him again. That was the ends of that.
Caller, I can tell you this. The last thing that we knew about Madman Markham was he went off after he got out of jail and decided to continue with this time machine project, and did, as far as we know. And he went ahead and, as we know, he completed it, and no one saw him after that. We have had no contact. This is the first time when BillyBob called the show and said that he contacted him in the year 2029 in the bar. That was the first time that I have heard anything about anyone seeing or hearing anything out of Madman Markham since he finished the time machine. So that's kind of where we're standing right now with it all. East of the Rockies, you are on the air with BillyBob.
Hey, Sal, how are you doing this evening?
Well, I'm doing fantastic tonight, caller, but first things first, please extinguish your radio on the other end so we all don't get confused by the feedback that's going on there. Second, who are you and where are you calling from?
Oh, yeah, I got my radio off now, Sal. This is Devin calling from Detroit, Michigan. I have just a couple of questions for BillyBob.
Well, go ahead. Shoot. Let us have it.
First, Sal, I want to say thanks for doing this interview because I've been waiting months and months and months. I believe like a 1,000 other people, well, way more than 1,000, to hear this BillyBob abduction interview, and thank you. BillyBob, couple of quick questions for you. When you were wrestling with the creature, when you were having to fight for life and death there, and you got sucked up by that light beam, what did that feel like? Going up that beam?
Well, I was just trying to keep my life going at that point, and I was pins down. He had my arms down. I had a hold of one of his arms, but not very strong. And that beam came down, and it felt like we were just being sucked up by a vacuum, I guess. If I knew it, it felt like to go up a vacuum tube. That's kind of what it's felt like. It didn't take very long. We were on the grounds, and almost like instantaneously, Wheeze was up that tube and on that ship.
Well, my second question here for you, BillyBob, is when you were on the ship, was it like anything else that you had ever experienced in your life? Like, was it like being in a cargo ship, or what was the materials on the inside of the ship like? What were the chairs like, or were there chairs, or do these creatures sit down, those types of things? What did you see inside there?
Well, I know everyone wants to know is what's the inside of the ships look like. I'll tell everybody the best that I can remember. I remembers the creatures more distinctly than the ship, but I just remember one area having big windows that you could see out of, although it was just dark, but big windows looking out. And there was some sort of controls and things there, and electronics. I don't know about those things. I'm just a damn plumber, you know. The walls were seemingly, they looked like some sort of steel or metal of some sort. I don't know what type of things those are, but there was very few places that you would sit down. What I saw was pods that appeared to have other people in it. And I believe that's what they put me in when they misted me over, and I didn't remember anything for 4 more days. There was some pods, and I don't know how many peoples were in them. The floor just looked shiny. The walls looked shiny, very cold and damp feeling, and that's what I remembers from the ship.
Well, BillyBob, we have come to the end of this segment of the show, and we need to go to a news break here shortly. I want to thank you for coming on and doing this interview. We've had so many requests, so many emails asking to hear this story, and I'm glad that you stayed up with us and told us what happened. It's been a really fascinating story, and we're going to stay in contact. I will contact you, and we will talk soon, maybe about a few other things. But right now, we're going to head to a news break, and then we're going to go to open lines, and anything goes at that point for the rest of the show.
Next, we feature Art Bell reading the Ronald Opus story, followed by Sal Rock reading the Oliver Grant story. Enjoy.
All right, here is a true but bizarre story. Now, this is still not yet quite Halloween fodder, but I wanted you to hear it. On March 23rd, 1994, the medical examiner viewed the body of Ronald Opus and concluded that he died from a shotgun wound of the head. Not unusual yet in our society. The descendant had jumped from the top of a 10-story building intending to commit suicide. He left a note to that effect indicating his despondency. As he fell past the 9th floor, his life was interrupted by a shotgun blast through a window, which killed him instantly. Bear in mind, the fellow had jumped out of a very high floor, but as he came by floor number 9, his head literally was blown off by a shotgun. Neither the shooter nor the decedent was aware that a safety that a safety net had been erected at the 8th floor level to protect some window washers, and that Opus would not have been able to complete his suicide anyway because of that. Strange. Ordinarily, Dr. Mills continued, quote, a person who sets out to commit suicide ultimately succeeds, even through the mechanism, even though it might not be what he really intended. That Opus was shot on the way to certain death 9 stories below probably would not have changed his mode of death from suicide to homicide, but the fact that his suicidal intent would not have been successful caused the medical examiner to feel that he had homicide on his hands. The room on the 9th floor where the shotgun blast emanated was occupied by an elderly man and his wife. Get this, they were arguing, and he was threatening her with the shotgun. He was so upset that when he pulled the trigger, he completely missed his wife, and the pellets went through the window, hitting Opus, who was on the way to what he thought was his death anyway. When one intends to kill subject A but kills subject B in the attempt, one is guilty of the murder of subject B. When confronted with this charge, the old man and his wife were both adamant that neither one of them knew the shotgun was loaded. The old man said it had been his long-standing habit to threaten his wife with an unloaded shotgun. He had no intention to murder her. Therefore, the killing of Opus appears to be an accident. That is to say, the gun had been accidentally loaded. The continuing investigation, get this, turned up a witness who saw the old couple's son loading the shotgun about 6 weeks prior to the fatal incident. It transpired that the old lady had cut off her son's financial support, and the son, knowing the propensity of his father to use the shotgun in a threatening way, loaded the gun with the expectation that his father would shoot his mother. The case now becomes one of murder on the part of the son for the death of Ronald Opus. Can you believe it? There was an exquisite twist. Further investigation revealed that the son, Ronald Opus, had become increasingly despondent over the failure of his attempt to engineer his own mother's murder. This is what led him to jump off the 10-story building on March 23rd, only to be killed by a shotgun blast through a 9th-story window. The medical examiner closed the case as that of a suicide. So, there you got it.
I was sent this news article by a listener coming from the San Francisco Gazette. At approximately 11:42 a.m., Oliver Grant, a 38-year-old freelance journalist, was killed while walking beneath a scaffolding-covered sidewalk in the Mission District. According to witnesses, a large antique piano fell from the 5th floor window of an apartment building undergoing renovations and struck Grant, killing him instantly. The immediate conclusion was that it was a tragic accident, but the story took a sharp turn after a routine autopsy and investigation raised several inconsistencies and revealed a sequence of events more bizarre than any expected. The medical examiner found that Oliver was already dead before the piano hit him. Time of death was estimated to just be seconds earlier, caused by a poison overdose, cyanide, fast-acting, precise, and intentional. Toxicology confirmed this. Now the death had all the hallmarks of a suicide. But if he had already been dead, then why was he walking upright on the sidewalk moments before the piano struck? Security footage showed Oliver stumbling down the sidewalk, clutching his chest and sweating heavily. Moments before reaching the scaffolding, he stopped, turned as if to go back, then collapsed, just as the piano fell directly on top of him. Investigators discovered that the piano was not supposed to be moved that day. However, a local moving crew had shown up unexpectedly claiming to be a scheduled pickup. A scheduling mix-up between the building superintendent and a third-party app had them arriving 2 hours earlier. When the movers tilted the piano to maneuver it out the window, one of the old ropes snapped, sending the instrument down with perfect timing. Police discovered that the apartment the piano fell from belonged to Oliver's estranged father, Arthur Grant, a reclusive jazz pianist who had become a YouTube sensation late in life. The two hadn't spoken in over a decade. When questioned, Arthur admitted the piano held deep sentimental value. He had refused to part with it, but relented under pressure from the building management. Oliver, who had been battling depression, had been following his father on online success and growing bitter. Investigators found a draft article on Oliver's laptop titled Frame, Fraud, and the Father Who Forgot Me. The real twist? The cyanide Oliver used had been taken from Arthur's old chemistry set stored in the same apartment. Oliver had broken into the building, taken the poison, and seemingly chose to walk past the apartment during the exact time the window movers were mistakenly scheduled. His intent may have been suicide, but the falling piano turned it into something else. After 2 weeks of review, the coroner listed the cause of death as suicide by poisoning. The piano strike was officially deemed post-mortem blunt trauma. However, the manner of death was listed as undetermined, suicide intersected by accidental death. Oliver Grant had intended to take his life, but not by the piano. The piano would not have fallen except due to a series of random coincidences involving people he resented. And yet, had it not fallen, his body would have simply been found on the sidewalk, the victim of a private death, not a public spectacle. Well, there you have it. Now, the strangest part of this story to me is that Oliver Grant is the cousin of Ronald Opus. Figure that one.
We thank you for joining us here in the Dark Zone tonight. WCAK 1124 AM's presentation of Billy Bob's Full Saga. Good night, America.